The former First Lady of the United States, former Democratic candidate for president, Hilary Clinton, will be speaking in Ottawa tonight at about 7 o'clock. She's speaking at the 2023 Liberal National Convention. Clinton's going to join Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland for a conversation about how Canada and the U.S. can work together. Now, back in 2021, Clinton endorsed the federal Liberals and called Justin Trudeau her friend. But it is curious to see such a big figure in American politics come talk to the federal Liberals in Ottawa. With more on this, let's go to Tasha Kheiriddin, member of the Advisory Council for Centre-Ice Canadians. Tasha, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Elias. Great to be here.
So I would imagine Hillary Clinton's not going there to discuss how to lose Michigan, Pennsylvania, big working class states. Why is Hillary Clinton showing up at the Liberal convention?
Well, I think she's showing up for two reasons. One is that they traditionally do have someone from the United States come to their conventions. It's David Axelrod, I think, came the last time. It's maybe I think it was virtually, but still, it's sort of a tradition that they have some figure of stature. But the second thing, I think, is because the Liberals see this as a way of shoring up Justin Trudeau's credibility with female voters. There's a lot of talk, of course, about what's happening with abortion laws in the United States. I believe that's going to come up. This is not just about the relationship of Canada and the U.S. It's about what's happening in the U.S. and how it's trickling up here. And after his speech last night where he said, we're not too woke, wake up, a gender, parity cabinet's a good thing, they're setting the stage for that conversation. And to me, that spells wedge issue for the next election.
Yeah, so on wedge issues, earlier on in this program, we discussed a bit just how it seems like the tone is being set very early in this election. Polarization, not just from Justin Trudeau, a wedge, as you mentioned here, but also from Pierre Poilievre. We're seeing more and more of the polarization here. Is that what you see here as you look forward to whenever the next federal election happens? Do you see the setup here happening right now this weekend amongst the Liberals and the rhetoric from Pierre Poilievre towards polarization?
Yeah, I do. I think that this is something it's not new. It's been happening for a while, ever since leadership, really. The party has veered further to not what I would call the right, but to a populist line, and taking positions on issues that, not just economic issues, but really going for the sort of Canada is broken rhetoric, the very hardcore, this government has failed Canadians, but the convoy line of, F Trudeau, that kind of subtext, it's a harsher line than the party's ever taken before. And the Liberals, meanwhile, have veered off to the left. And for Trudeau to say they're not woke and that woke is not a bad thing in their case, well, I think he is woke. It's absolutely. I mean, I wrote a whole chapter in my book this last year about how he's taken the government to the left. And he's actually hurt the middle class. The same middle class he said he would help. They weren't hurting before he got there, quite frankly. The U.S. one was, but not ours. And he put policies in that actually didn't help them. Helped the poorest Canadians, yes, but not the middle class. So, his whole shtick it's about polarization on both ends. And for either of them to deny that, I think, is fallacious. With
Tasha Kheiriddin, she writes on her Substack, also writes for the National Post. And Tasha, on your Substack, part of one of the things you recently wrote about is Justin Trudeau staying or going, right? There had been some questions as to whether or not he would be the guy to lead the party. Boy, it certainly seems from last night that he's the guy. They've made all the determinations, they've crunched all the numbers, and their best results are still with Justin Trudeau leading the Liberals.
Yeah, I interviewed a non-scientific poll of 6 prominent Liberals for that column, and only one of them was saying Trudeau should go. The others were all of varying degrees he should stay for various reasons, including the fact that the party needs to win in Quebec and to stave off a conservative majority or minority even, and he's the best of their lot to take Quebec. There's also the question of timing. If there's a fast election, if the opposition parties pull the trigger, well, he's definitely leading, right? If things run the clock out to 2025, well, maybe that would give someone else the time to step in his shoes, but there's really no sense that there's someone there who's of the same stature. And I think that, because things have become so polarized, I've always said for the Liberals, if they want to take the wind out of Poilievre's sails, they should not run him, because the whole Conservative Party has become a Trudeau-hating club, right? But I don't think that's going to happen. I think that they're just going to go with the devil they know. And his reception at the convention last night, if that's any indication, the Liberals are behind him.
Mm-hmm. And I think the Quebec factor there is just so important, right? Because you think, who else is there that could win in Quebec amongst the Liberals, right? And if Trudeau just sticks in Quebec and sticks to getting 30% of the Quebec vote, boy, is there anyone else that could do that? I'm just not so sure about it.
Yeah, and I think that's why they're going to wedge issues like abortion in the next election. I think that's why Hilary Clinton, like I said, is there. It's the sense, the only group that Trudeau is really leading in is with female voters. I think that, Quebec is very, very leery of the Conservative stance on abortion. It did them in last time. Under Andrew Scheer, it did them in. Under Erin O'Toole, there was still the Whisper campaign, even though the party has not been advocating for restrictions on abortion for, even since Stephen Harper took the helm in 2005. But people still have this in the back of their mind, and because of what's happening in the U.S. now, it's so easy to just raise the issue, right? You don't even have to say what the position is; you just raise it, and people get nervous. So I think that's what the Liberals are going to do.
And I think, Tasha, you're so bang on about that, and the Liberals have been so effective of taking American issues and trying to make them Canadian issues. The abortion thing, it hasn't been on the table in this country for so long, but they make it an issue. And guns, by the way, it's the U.S. that's Guntopia, where they just shoot each other every day. That's not Canada, but they make it a Canadian issue, and I think they're successful here.
Guntopia, that's funny. I'll use that one.
And that's what I've said, Tasha. I've said we live next to Guntopia, and if we want to be serious about it, we need to put big old signs along the border that say, hey, we're going to treat guns like, Australia or Singapore treats drugs, importing drugs. That's how seriously we should take it. Tasha, I want to ask you about this. And, with your role at Center Ice Canadians, not lost on me that Center Ice Canadians just revealing that they polled Canadians. They polled 2,000 Canadians, and they found 70% of Canadians call themselves centrists. Do those 70% of Canadians have an option in the Liberals or Conservatives in this country right now?
Well, I would say no. And the idea is that, we're trying to make the point that really they should be listening to this group of Canadians and moving more to a politics that speaks to them, because otherwise they're disenfranchising 70% of the population, and they're also creating a situation where people just aren't going to engage in politics. It's a very dangerous thing. You end up with just the certain loud voices on the ends that are yelling. You see declining voter participation. That is really bad for democracy. So, we're raising this alarm because it is very concerning, and because traditionally both these parties were big tent parties, and they've moved now to become what you call in politics niche parties, which is just feeding one segment of the electorate that they think they can motivate and ignoring the rest. And, with all the stuff with foreign interference and other things that are happening, we have to protect and cherish our democracy. So they should be listening to these Canadians. And that's one of the goals of the group, is to make our voice heard.
Tasha Kheiriddin, the empire of Tasha Kheiriddin includes her Substack, National Post columns, and her role on the advisory council for Center Ice Canadians. Tasha, it's always a pleasure. You have a great weekend.
Thank you so much, Elias. Bye-bye.
That's Tasha Kheiriddin right